There is a terrifying kind of silence that falls over a royal banquet right before history changes. Forever, not laughter, not music. Silence. The kind that makes people instinctively realize something is wrong moments before disaster strikes. And on the night Buckingham Palace celebrated Prince Edward's engagement to Lady Victoria Ashford, a single maid noticed the poison first. Nobody noticed Clara Whitmore standing quietly beside the champagne table, because nobody ever noticed servants. That was precisely why the royal family trusted palace staff to move silently through the halls like ghosts. Invisible people heard everything, saw everything, and survived by pretending they saw nothing at all. Clara had spent 3 years inside Buckingham Palace polishing silver trays, memorizing aristocratic faces, and enduring cruel whispers from nobles who treated servants like furniture. She learned quickly that quiet women survived longer in royal households. So she kept her head down, spoke softly, and disappeared into the background. But tonight, something felt wrong. The ballroom glowed beneath enormous crystal chandeliers, while a live orchestra played softly for Britain's most powerful families. Politicians laughed over champagne. Aristocrats gossiped beneath golden ceilings. Cameras flashed endlessly around Prince Edward and his fiancée as they smiled for the press like the perfect future royal couple. And somewhere inside all that beauty, death was waiting. Clara noticed it beside the champagne station. A waiter she had never seen before carefully placed 2 crystal glasses onto the royal silver tray. One for Prince Edward, one for Lady Victoria. At first glance, nothing seemed unusual until his hand trembled. Just slightly. Most people would never have noticed. But Clara did. Because years earlier, long before she entered palace service, she had watched her own father die slowly after being poisoned by a business rival. And one detail haunted her memory forever. Poison always made nervous hands shake. Her heartbeat quickened instantly. The waiter avoided eye contact. His breathing looked uneven. And after placing the glasses down, he disappeared into the crowd far too quickly, too nervously. Clara stared at the 2 crystal glasses, then suddenly understood something horrifying. Someone inside Buckingham Palace was about to murder the future king. Her chest tightened. Painfully, Prince Edward stood only yards away, smiling beside Victoria, while hundreds of guests applauded around them, completely unaware death was inches from his fingertips. Clara froze. If she accused the wrong person publicly, her life inside the palace would be destroyed immediately. The royal family hated scandal more than danger itself. A servant accusing palace staff during a live engagement celebration would never survive professionally. But if she stayed silent, the prince would die. The orchestra swelled louder as Clara slowly lifted the silver tray with trembling hands. Every step across the ballroom felt unbearable. Her pulse thundered in her ears. Nobles laughed beside her. Flashbulbs exploded across the room, and then Prince Edward reached for the poisoned glass. Clara moved instantly. She deliberately stumbled forward, crashing directly into the champagne table. The silver tray flew violently into the air. Crystal shattered across the marble floor like gunfire. Champagne exploded across expensive gowns and tuxedos. The entire ballroom gasped for one horrifying second. Nobody moved. Then Queen Margaret stood up furious. "You incompetent girl!" she shouted. The room turned toward Clara immediately. Aristocrats stared at her with disgust while palace guards rushed forward. Victoria looked horrified. Cameras flashed wildly as guests whispered angrily about the ruined celebration. Clara dropped to her knees beside the shattered crystal, pretending panic while secretly watching the poisoned liquid spread harmlessly across the marble floor. And that was when she saw him, the mysterious waiter. Slowly backing away toward the ballroom exit. Fear exploded across his face the moment he realized The prince never drank the champagne. One palace guard noticed him too late. The man suddenly turned and ran. Chaos erupted. Instantly, guests screamed. Tables overturned. Security officers lunged through the ballroom while terrified aristocrats rushed away from the exits. One elderly duke nearly collapsed as guards tackled the fleeing waiter near the palace doors. Prince Edward stared in disbelief while Queen Margaret's face slowly drained of color. Minutes later, investigators discovered a small vial hidden inside the waiter's serving cart. Poison. Enough to stop a man's heart. Within minutes, the ballroom fell completely silent, and then slowly, horrifyingly, everyone turned back toward Clara. The quiet maid still kneeling beside the broken glass. Realization spread across the room all at once. She had just saved the royal bloodline. Queen Margaret looked shaken for the first time in years. Victoria clutched Edward's arm in visible fear while aristocrats whispered around the ballroom in stunned disbelief. Then Prince Edward himself walked slowly toward Clara. The future King of Britain stopped directly in front of a servant girl covered in spilled champagne. And to the shock of everyone in the palace, he bowed his head slightly toward her. "You saved my life," he said quietly. No one inside Buckingham Palace could remember the last time a royal had publicly thanked a maid. But perhaps the most terrifying moment came later that night, because as guards dragged the assassin away in chains, he suddenly stopped struggling and looked directly at Clara. Then he smiled. A cold, frightening smile. "You should have let him die," he whispered. Clara's blood ran cold instantly, because that was not the expression of a desperate man who failed. It was the expression of someone who knew something worse was still coming. And suddenly, Clara realized the horrifying truth. The assassin had never been working alone. Someone powerful inside Buckingham Palace wanted the future king dead. And now, they knew exactly who ruined everything.